Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial we're going to learn how to use gallery wire to capture a cabochon. Now I have two different styles of gallery wire just to show you a variety, as it can come in many different designs, and I'll also show you how to make and attach a bail so we can of course hang it on something like a chain. Now if you're particularly interested in one style of gallery wire over the other, I will have timestamps in the description box down below so you can use those to jump around the video. Otherwise, if you want to learn a couple of different ways we can capture a cabochon using gallery wire, then keep watching. So the first type of gallery wire we're going to be using is this here, where the design is on both sides of the wire. So as you can see, the leads in this case are running on both sides, and we kind of have the core in the middle. That is really the only piece that's connecting everything together. And of course there's many different kinds of designs with this style. This is just what I'm using as an example. So of course, first of all, we need our gallery wire. Then we'll also need some regular round wire. In this case I'm using a copper wire, and this is mainly to make the bail with. The first gauge is a 0.8mm, this will be the base wire. And then I'm using a 0.4mm for the weaving wire, and also to attach things together. Now of course we'll need the stone that we want to capture as well, so I've got an oval cabochon here, but this will work for many different sizes and shapes. And finally of course we'll need our findings as well, so I've got a chain that I'm going to hang my pendant on. As for the tools, we really just need a few of the basic pliers. So first of all, I've got some flush cutters so we can of course cut our wire, tweezer nose and chain nose pliers to help manipulate the wire, and then I've got some round nose pliers for any loops we need to make. Now you'll be able to find the tool and material list in the description box down below. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab our cabochon here that we need to capture, and then also the gallery wire, because we need to figure out how much of the gallery wire we need to basically come around the circumference of the stone, and then we can cut it off. So what I like to do is just open up the wire a bit and then kind of start to gently shape it around the stone. Now I do like to always leave a bit extra length here, especially if it's a design like this where I also maybe want to incorporate it into the bail. So you just want to make sure to leave a bit extra on the ends, so something a bit like that, and then kind of just roughly have it come around the stone until you feel like you have a length that's long enough to come around the stone and also a bit excess on the ends. So something like that should be fine. Then I'm just going to go in and cut it off from the rest, so we have a bit less of a length to work with here, and just put that out of the way. So this is the length of gallery wire that I'm going to be working with, and that's going to go around the outside of the stone and basically be what captures it in place. Now in some situations you could use the gallery wire to also make the bail, but what I'm going to do is make a bail separately with the regular round wire that we have, and then attach it to the piece. So this is really just for decoration and obviously for securing the stone in place. And the ends here, I'm then just going to probably use those to decorate the bail with, just to make it all a nice and cohesive piece. But since I have this in place now, I'm just going to put it to the side so it's ready for when we need it. And then I'm going to start making the bail so we have that ready to go as well. Now for the bail we'll need to cut some of our wires, so I have two lengths here of the 0.8mm of about 15cm each. Now of course you can make them shorter or longer depending on how you want your bail to be. I'm just going to show you how to make a basic one. And as for the weaving wire, I'm just going to leave that attached to the reel, as it's a little hard to know exactly how much we're going to need, but also there's no need to cut it off for the sake of the design. So to start making the bail, we need to grab our base wires here, and I'm just going to start with one of them, and then I'm grabbing my weaving wire as well. And what I like to do is just leave a little tail, just in case we want to use that to attach anything together. So I'm just going to leave a tail like this, about 20cm or so, whatever you feel is adequate. And then what I want to do is first of all attach this weaving wire to the base wire. So I'm just going to wrap it around once and make sure it gets nice and tight like that. And then we need to start our weave straight away. So I'm going to bring in the other base wire and just lay that above the first one, so right next to it there. And then I'm going to make sure to wrap over the top of both of them and come back underneath and straight away come up between the two, so we can wrap around the top one by itself. And now this is called the diagonal wire weave. Just like to tighten that weave up and the wraps with my pliers if you need to. And of course, you don't have to use this wire weave specifically, that's just what I'm using. It's my personal favorite. You can use whatever you want to, and also make your bail look different if you want. But what I then want to make sure to do is, as we continue weaving, that we do leave a little bit of tail on the base wires as well, as we're going to need to make some loops with that to be able to attach it. But we just continue with this weave for as long as we need until we have the full length needed for the bail. So I'm wrapping around the bottom one by itself, over the top of both to come up between them, and wrap over the top of that top one by itself. And again, if you need to, you can tighten your wraps with pliers. And like I said, just keep going like this until you have the length that you need for the bail. Now I've got the length of weave that I want for my bail, and don't worry about it not being in the middle, it doesn't matter because we can just cut off any excess anyway. So for reference, what I have is about 2.5 centimeters. Of course, that will all depend on the look that you want for yours, and bear in mind that this will get pretty much folded in half, so your bail will be approximately half the length of this. So now that we're done with the weaving, we can just cut off the wire from the reel. So again, just make sure to leave a decent length that we can use to attach with. And then we need to start shaping this into the actual shape the final bail is going to have. So I'm just going to grab my round nose pliers. It doesn't really matter what you use. You can use anything you have handy. I'm not going to use them as pliers per se, but just kind of the roundness of the pliers to shape the length of wires around here. So I'm going to place them at roughly the middle. And like I said, I'm not gripping down because I don't want to damage the wire or the weave in any way. But I'm then just going to bring the ends down and around and basically put a curve into it to the point where the two ends of the weave meet back up with each other, something a bit like that. So this is basically the shape of our bail that we now have pretty much ready, and that's why, as you can see, you can use anything you have handy to help shape it. So from here, what we're going to do is make sure that those two ends are basically meeting up nice and tight, and I then want to start separating the wires out. So whether you start on one side or the other doesn't matter. I'm basically going to take the two wires that are coming out from the same end here, and I actually want to separate them out towards the sides, so to each their own side, like that, and just the same with the ones on the other side. So it looks a little something like that, because we now have created space. Instead of the wires coming straight down, we have this space available so we can place this on top of our stone and not have the wires be in the way. And then this is the point where we then need to make some loops. So that's what we're going to be doing with these wires that we just brought out to the side. So first of all, we can cut off some of the length. Now, I recommend that you rather cut off too little than too much, because you can always cut more, but obviously if you cut it too short in the first place, you can't really do anything about that. So just cut it down so you have maybe about 1 centimeter or so left. Like I said, we can always cut off more if we need to. And I'm just going to do the same on the other side. So, something like that. And just kind of keep these weaving wires out of the way. Now I'm going to grab the round nose pliers. And we basically need to make loops with these little ends that we have left, because we can then weave in and out of those loops to attach this to the stone once we get to that point. So it's really up to you how you do this, but what I kind of like to do is grab on the end and then start to roll the wire in towards itself. You can see we're kind of shaping a little hook shape there now. And then keep rolling it until it basically meets up with itself. And it's not quite a circle yet, but this is why we then can go in and cut off a bit more. Just from the very tip basically. So just cut that bit off, go back with your round nose pliers and grab onto the wire and bring it further in, and we have a full circle there. Now you can always reshape anything you need to. So for instance, bring this wire a little bit out to one of the sides so we can make space for doing the same thing with the one on the other side here. So grab onto the wire with your round nose pliers, and I'm making sure that it's towards the tip so these loops become pretty small, almost as small as possible, so they're as seamless as possible for the design. You don't really notice them. So bring it around, go in and cut off that tip that's still kind of straight that you can't really put a curve into because it's right at the end, but then you can cut it off and go back and basically keep curling it in, and then we can just make sure everything is nice and flat. And you can see they are now pretty much laying nice and flat next to each other. So it looks a little something like that. Now I'm just going to go over to the other side, get the weaving wires out of the way, and then these two little ends on the other side just do the exact same thing. So now we have the bail ready here. Then we can go back to our cabochon and the gallery wire, because we need to then start shaping this around and of course eventually put the two things together. Now what we're going to do is start to shape the gallery wire around the outer edge of the stone here. So just start in one place. I kind of like to start in the middle of the wire roughly, and then place it towards the bottom of the stone and bring it up the sides. Now it can be a little bit fiddly because obviously it's loose and kind of wanting to move around, but just roughly get it into place here. And then at the top I'm just going to kind of start to bend the ends of the wire upwards where they basically meet up, just so they don't get in each other's way, and we can have it a little bit more properly sitting around the stone, and kind of just make sure it's pretty nice and tight. We don't want any air or loose gap anywhere, and then it ends up not fitting properly. So then what we need to do is start to capture this. And again, this can be a little bit fiddly, but just take your time. So in this case here, because this gallery wire has the design on both sides, we can use the little leaves to actually capture the stone in place and secure it. So I'm just going to start on the back here. I find that the easiest, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to basically start to bend each individual leaf in over the back of the stone. And just take your time doing it and be nice and gentle here. So kind of hold on to it the best you can, and then with the stone kind of running in the middle of the wire, so we can bend a leaf here in over the back. Now you can use your hands and fingers if it's soft enough. If you find the wire is a bit too harsh, you can always use pliers if you need to, and obviously do it gently and carefully, but start to bend. In this case I'm going to call these the back leaves and these the front leaves, just because of it being the front and the back of the cabochon, but of course the leaves themselves are the same on both sides. But then just keep bending them in over the stone. It doesn't have to be perfect to begin with, we just need to get it started. So as you can see, where the leaves are coming from, that midpoint that's running down through the whole wire is where they need to start bending. So just gradually work your way around, and like I said, just take your time. Don't worry if it doesn't look perfect, and if it keeps kind of slipping out and falling out, that will probably happen, as nothing is secure yet. But just take one leaf at a time, in this case for this design, and just gently work your way around. Now what I find helps as well is that while you're trying to bend the back leaves towards the back of the stone, I kind of like to brace against the front ones. That's basically right next to where we're working with it, just so they don't kind of start pulling out. So for instance, I'm going to bend that next one. I'm just going to put my fingers on the front ones and then bend the back one down, and just basically do that all the way around. So I now pushed all the leaves here in over the back, and don't worry, like I said, about how it looks yet, because we can still go back. What I'm going to do now is just flip it around to the front, because I kind of want to do the same on the front just to get it more secure. And it's literally the same thing. You just start somewhere, and again I like to hold one finger on the back of where I'm working with it and then push down the front ones more in over the cabochon. Again, hold down on the back so it doesn't open back up while pushing the front ones more in over the stone and getting a little bit more everything in place. So just do this all the way around, get those leaves in this case to come in over the edge and really grip onto the cabochon nicely from the front as well. So now I brought the leaves more in on the front as well, and you can see them a little bit more. And we can also test it now, because like I said, we might not be completely done. You can still adjust it more if you need to. But if we grab at the top here, so put the very end where the wires meet together and hold on to that, we can basically make sure that it's in there securely and it's not going to come out from either the back or the front. And that seems pretty good so far. So next step would be to then attach our bail to the piece, so of course we can actually wear it and also finish it off. And the way we're going to do this is basically this little bail that we've already made, we want this to get placed right at the top and of course in the middle, and then be able to use the bail there, the opening for a chain or whatever. So again, this can be a little bit fiddly, but try and hold everything in place. Now what I want to do as well is I'm going to use the ends of the gallery wire here to be part of the bail as a design as well. So I basically want one end to come up the front of the bail and the other end to come up behind the bail and kind of blend in that way. So they just continue from around the stone, but they're incorporated into the design on the bail as well. So I'm kind of twisting them a little bit, so one comes, so going to sit flat when you look at it from the front, and then one flat when you look at it from the back. And then it's a matter of basically squeezing the bail in there to sit in between them, and just maneuver your wire ends and anything you need to. And of course we can adjust as well. So I do want this piece to come a little bit further in over the middle of the bail and then start to work its way up. And of course the same thing with the one on the back. So just adjust that until you're happy, and again we can always adjust a little bit more once everything is a bit more secured, but you want to get the basic placement in place. And then I can also see this leaf here that I actually didn't bend yet, and over the front I can then actually bend, because that will then fit perfectly with where the bail part is going to start. So to then attach this and obviously make it secure and fasten together, we need to use these ends of the weaving wire to secure the bail, using the little loops that we made with the ends of the base wire and going in and out of them, and then catching around the sides and a few places where the gallery wire is as well. So that can be a bit fiddly, but just hold on to the best you can, and then just gradually move everything around, secure an area in place, and then have a look at it, see if you're still happy with it or you just need to do any changes. So I'm just going to start with the wire here at the front. Doesn't matter where you start, but just hold on to everything the best you can. And I want to focus on securing the bail in place with this weaving wire here, which in this case is then closest to that gallery wire that's coming from around the side of the front. So we can just grab around that first, and then just kind of weave in and out between the design of your gallery wire wherever you need to. And of course we can always go to the end and feed that down through anywhere. So you want to make sure you're catching through those little loops that we made at the end of the base wire. So that's what I'm just pushing the end of the weaving wire through while it's coming around the gallery wire as well. I'm going to pull it tighter. And the beginning will always be the most fiddly because everything is loose. Until we get it tightened a bit, gradually more and more, it'll become easier. Pull that tighter. something a bit like that. And then before moving too much further with that, we can just go to the other one. So I'm just going to flip it to the back here, because this wire will be closer to the gallery wire on the back of the piece that's coming from the other side, and just basically attach that in more or less the same way, and it's going to then already become much more secure to hold on to. So make sure I'm weaving it around the gallery wire, and then I'm going down through one of the loops there that we made from the base wire, and then coming out towards the back again. And as I'm pulling it tight, it's going to pull around the gallery wire while still being attached to the bail, and fasten the two pieces together. Now of course you want to work on this for a bit and basically secure it in multiple places. You want to make sure you use all the loops on the base wire there from the bail, so also the ones we haven't used yet, and you want to go through them multiple times. So basically this is just a matter of judging it as you go, figuring out which is the next place you want to bring your weaving wire through. You can also come around the gallery wire there and then just go straight through the bail to the other side a couple of times. Make sure to just weave in and out between the leaves so it looks nice and neat as well. So I'm now on the other side here, and then I can come down through that loop in the base wire from the bail that we haven't used yet on this side, because we also of course want to make sure we pay attention to the bail being in the middle, nice and even on the top part of the stone, which is what you want to keep an eye on throughout as you're fastening it more and more together. So keep flipping it however you need to. So once you have it in there more securely and you feel the bail is attached nicely as well, if you have these parts on the ends going up to decorate the bail as well as I do, then you can also take your weaving wire here and attach those a little bit more securely to the bail. So for instance, I'm just going to come through to come out on the other side, and then make sure that it wraps, it just catches on to the gallery wire, and then come further up a little bit, bring it around, and then just catch on again as I'm bringing it through. And as you can see there, just make sure I catch the gallery wire along with that front part of the bail, so it secures it more in place. So you can do that working your way up a bit, and of course then come back down, and then also just feel free to do that on the other side. It makes the whole piece more secure, along with of course not having any loose wire ends, including the gallery wire, kind of sticking out and getting caught on things. So once you're happy with it and it's nice and secure, make sure you just double check that everything is fastened, nothing's going to come out or come loose. Then all we got to do really is finish off our wires, so both the gallery wire, the ends that are sticking further up than we want them to, and also of course the weaving wire. So it doesn't really matter what you start with. I'm just going to cut off the extra gallery wire first, and it's up to you really how you want that to end, of course. So what I do like to do is cut off a little bit at a time, so purposely leave it longer than I want it to be, because it is easier to adjust it when there's still some more to cut off. So if I can just get my pliers in there, just cut this first bit off, because it's still going to be a bit too long, I know that. And then you can of course judge where your bail ends and how you want it to look. Do you want it to be fully covered, or do you want to part of the bail showing? Then we can decide how much to cut off. I'm going to at least also grab this top leaf, get the pliers in place, cut off that leaf, and then just have a little look at it. And I think that's still too tall compared to what I want, so I think I'm going to want to cut off again that top leaf and then the little sprout thingy next to it, and I think that might be a good height. So let me just separate that out and get the plier in exactly where I want it cut. So something like that, and let's hope that that wasn't too much. We have the design still coming up, but you can start to just see a sneak peek of the bail there, which I kind of like. And of course you could cut off that leaf if it's sticking out a bit too much, but you can always adjust that later on. Do the same thing on the back, cut it down, and then what you want to do with the weaving wires is find somewhere that you can basically wrap it around a couple of times. So whether that's one of the other weaving wires that you have a gap on, or wherever you can find some space to wrap it around a couple of times to secure it in place before we cut it off. So I'm just wrapping it around a previous part of the weaving wire itself. And again, I'm just going to do that a couple of times in that same place. And then we can go in and cut off the excess. And always make sure just to push down any little wire end sticking out where we don't want it to. Get that out of the way. And then I just need to still cut that back, but that isn't how you want to finish it off. And of course, you can go back to the leaves, in this case here, around the cabochon, so both on the back and the front, and kind of readjust anything if you need to. So push them further in, adjust the placement a little bit if you want it to look a little bit different. Maybe even everything out, so you can go back and just do the final adjustments with that. And of course you then have your bail there to put your chain through or whatever you want to use, but otherwise then your stone is captured with the gallery wire. It's really beautiful, and in this case the gallery wire is also being featured up on the bail, so it's overall a really lovely piece. So the next kind of gallery wire we're going to be working with is this, where you have the lovely design on one side, but then the other side is straight. And in this case here, it also has a couple little holes included in the design, which obviously we're going to take advantage of. So you can see this, we won't just be able to take around both the front and the back of the cabochon and capture, because we don't have the design on the one side like we did on the previous gallery wire. So we're going to need to use this just a little bit differently. Now, along with the gallery wire, we're also going to need some regular round wire, and in this case I'm using a silver coated copper wire to match my gallery wire nicely. And the first gauge here is a 0.8mm. This will be a base wire, really just to make the bail with. And we're also going to need a 0.4mm wire as the weaving wire for the bail, and also to attach everything together. Now of course we'll need a stone that we want to capture as well, and in this case the one I'm using is approximately 50 by 30mm in size. And a teardrop shape, as you can see, but you can really use this technique for many different shapes and sizes, of course. And again, whatever findings you want to use. So I got my chain that my pendant is going to hang on, and then my clasp, so extended chain and lobster claw clasp, and a few jumpings to put it all together. As for the tools we'll need, of course, again, we'll need some flush cutters so we can cut our wire, chain nose and tweezer nose pliers to help manipulate the wire and for the jump rings, round nose pliers for any loops we need to make, and you can also use them to help shape the bail. Again, you can check out the description box for the full tool and material list and useful links, of course. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. So to start out, I'm going to get my cabochon, of course, and then also my gallery wire, because I basically want to find the length that I need. So in this design here, I'm not going to use the gallery wire as any part of the bail. So I literally just want the length that goes all the way around, so the circumference of the stone. So you can literally push it up against the stone like this to find the length. Now again, I would still rather cut off a bit too much, so we have a bit too much length left is what I mean, because you can always just trim it down more if you need to, rather than if you cut off too much in the first place, you can't add any. So where they meet up, basically, I'm gonna then place my pliers. So right there is where I want to cut, like that. Just so we have the length that we're going to be working with and no excess length that's going to just get in the way. So this is the basic shape and wire that's going to go around the stone. Now what you also need to be aware of is when you are going to capture a stone like this with this kind of wire, you also have to pay attention to the width of the wire here, because as you can see, we only have part of the wire on one side that's going to actually capture over, in this case, the front of the stone, so we have the design on the front, and the other side, which is the straight side there, is going to be on the back. But we don't have anything to bend over, so we're going to capture the back in a different way. But what I mean is you need to make sure though that the cabochon, the thickness of the cabochon, will basically fit with the width of the wire. So you don't want the cabochon to be too thick, because in that case you might not be able to just push over the gallery wire there. So that design in this case is pretty much just going to be the outer little round kind of balls there that we're going to push in over and just capture it. But if the cabochon is too thick, you might not be able to do that. So you do have to pay attention to the sizes of both the thickness of the cabochon and of course the width of the wire there, so they fit together nicely. So in this case, I have to make sure that the cabochon is a bit on the thinner side rather than too thick. But now that I have this, I'm then going to go and grab my regular round wire because I want to start working on the bail. So the lengths of wires we'll need for the bail is two lengths here of about 15 centimeters each of the 0.8 mil, so the base wire, and that's just what I'm using. You can of course change the lengths if you want your bail to look different. And the weaving wire here, I'm just going to leave attached to the reel. There's no reason to cut it off before we're done making the bail, and it's hard to know exactly how much we're going to need. So we're going to grab our wires here. I've got my base wires. I'm just going to start with one because we need to first of all attach our weaving wire to that, and I'm also going to make sure to just leave a bit of a tail, about 20 to 30 centimeters or so, just so we have that to be able to attach the bail to our piece when we're done. And to attach them together, all I'm going to do is put my weaving wire underneath and wrap it around the base wire here like this, and it's now attached. Now, along with leaving a tail on the weaving wire, I also like to not start right to the end of the base wire. First of all, so we have a little bit to hold on to, but also so we have some ends to be able to work with afterwards and make loops so we can attach the pieces together. So just leave a couple centimeters here, that's fine. And then we're going to get into the weave. So I'm also going to bring in my second base wire and just place that above the first one like this. And I'm going to do the figure of 8 weave because I'm going to make a little bit more of a design of this bail here. Unlike on the previous cabochon where it was more hidden behind the gallery wire itself, I'm not going to be doing that with this one, because this gallery wire is different. So to do the figure of 8 weave, I'm going to come over the top of the wires again, but I'm going to come down between the two. So we technically wrapped around the bottom one here twice, but instead, let me just squeeze them together so they're nice and tight. Instead of coming down and around the bottom one again, I'm going to go underneath the top one and come over down between again. So we've now wrapped once around that top one, so basically twice around the bottom one and once around the top one. Now what we actually want to do is wrap twice around each, alternating. So that means I just need to wrap one more around that top one, come down between the two. At any point we can squeeze our wraps together, and then I'm going to come down underneath the bottom one again because we've just wrapped twice around the top one. Now I want to wrap twice around the bottom one again, once and twice, come under the top one to wrap twice around that. So you can see we're just alternating between wrapping twice around both, first the bottom one, then the top one, then back to the bottom one, then the top one. So basically zigzagging back and forth like that, and I always like to keep my wraps nice and tight. Now what I want to start doing is also positioning my base wires how I want my bail to look. So I'm going to add a design in where the bail kind of graduates outwards towards the top of the bail, and then I'm going to graduate back inwards again, so that when we shape the bail to the final shape it's going to have a nice design on it. Of course you can just keep them straight if that's the look you're going for, but basically then using the figure of 8 weave here is going to then fill in this shape that we're making and give a really nice look to it. And that is going to be when we do the crossing from side to side. That basically fills in the space here between the base wires. So when you are wrapping around the base wires like this, you don't want to pull too tight because it's going to pull the base wires closer together. Try and keep them in the position that you want them in. So I'm basically just going to keep wrapping like this, filling in the space, working upwards a bit to the point where basically how I want my bail to look. So what's going to end up actually being the midpoint, because we're going to then fold it in half more or less and then shape it into the final shape the bail is going to have. So exactly how yours looks obviously is up to you, but just get to that point. So this is what it looks like when I pretty much reach what's going to be the midpoint of the bail, or the top of it once we shape it. So like I said, what I want to do now is keep weaving, basically double this length, but now I want to start graduating inwards again. So I just need to grab my pliers and basically shake the base wire. Now I'm going to make sure to push the weaving wire down so it's nice and tight, and then bring the base wires back in towards each other. So a little something like that. As you can see, we're basically bringing them back together again, and it just gives the bail a nice little design to it. So you just want to keep weaving, and the difference in the weaving now, there's no technical difference, we'll be doing the same weave, but what you'll find is the wire is going to want to start to slip towards the more narrow point there, so you're going to be at higher risk of getting a more uneven weave. So the way to prevent that is that whenever you tighten your weave or your wire here, weaving wire on one side, you want to make sure you hold down the wraps you did on the previous side, so make sure they're nice and tight while you're then tightening on the current side that we're working on, because as you can see they kind of want to slip downwards towards that narrow point. So just try and counteract that, nice and tight, and as I'm moving it towards the top side here, I'm going to make sure to hold down and push down on the wraps that I just did while I'm wrapping around on the opposite side, and just keep doing that again until you reach the point where they first all come back together, but just so we have the full length of the bail. So now I've got the full length that I need here, and I'm happy with how it looks. Then we can cut off the weaving wire from the reel. Again, I just like to leave a bit of a tail, so we have that to work with. There we go. Just about the same length as we left in the beginning. And then I'm just going to finish shaping the bail as well. So it's basically ready to be attached when we get to that point. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my round nose pliers and use them as a bit of a mandrel. You can use whatever you have handy. And I'm not going to use them as pliers to clamp down. I'm literally just using the shape that I then want to place behind my bail here, about the midpoint, so where the widest part is. And then I'm just going to shape the bail around the pliers here, so you can then see we end up with this lovely looking shape on the bail rather than being just straight up and down. So that's the basic shape of the bail, and just check you're happy with the opening. It's going to fit your chain through and all that. Now we then have our weaving wires. I'm going to leave them. What I'm just going to do is just cut down the lengths of the base wires here, because we don't quite need all this. Just get rid of those. And what I'm then going to do is basically get the base wires ready to be the part that's going to attach to the gallery wire and the stone. So first of all, I'm looking at it from the front here. I'm going to grab the two base wires and separate them out. So the ones that are coming out of the same end there, they're going to end up going out towards each their own side. Something a bit like that. You can just do the same with the other ones. And then what we're going to do is end up making a couple little loops, so we have something to weave our weaving wire through and kind of catch onto. And for that, I'm going to again just grab my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to basically have the two ends of the bail be sitting nice and tight together, and then just grip onto right where the base wire is coming out from the weave. And just one wire at a time, I'm then going to bring it around my pliers here all the way, so we get pretty much a full circle. And I'm kind of staying towards the tip of my pliers to make sure this loop that we're making doesn't end up too large. So have it pretty small there, so it doesn't stand out too much from the design. But at the same time, we still want enough space to weave through. And I'm literally just going to do the same with all of the base wires here, the ends of them. Just make little loops. So now I have one loop on each of the base wires there. Then I just want to cut off the excess, and I'm going to make sure to cut it basically where the wire starts to overlap itself, so that once we cut and get rid of the excess there, we can then go in and flatten the circle down, and it's a complete circle, and the very end of the wire is basically butting up against the side of itself. So I'm just going to go around and do that with all of the loops here, so we can get rid of the ends. So now I basically have my bail completely ready. We have the little loops there ready to be used to attach it to our piece, which we can just grab the stone and the gallery wire here and just get a bit of an idea. It's going to end up sitting right at the top, just like this, and of course we're going to adjust it to fit nicely. So this is the basic idea. Now of course we can't just attach it now because there's nothing here keeping the stone in place, so that is the next thing we need to do. So this is where we need to cut a length of the 0.4mm to be able to capture the back of the cabochon. So I'm using a length of about 2 meters. Now of course this could be different for yours depending if you're using a smaller or bigger cabochon. So with a length of weaving wire ready, I'm then going to grab my stone and gallery wire as well, because of course we need to then capture this, and it's going to be on the back at first. Now this can be a little bit fiddly, so just take your time. But we have the wire shaped around the stone here the best we can for now, and of course you can see because nothing's attached together it kind of wants to spring open, but we have the rough shape in place. So the first thing I'm just going to do is attach my weaving wire to the gallery wire here, and for this gallery wire it has these little holes in the design right next to kind of the straight bottom of it there, so I'm going to be able to use those to put my wire through and grip the stone from the back, and that's the point of it. So I'm just going to first of all attach my wire to the very first little hole there on the straight side, and I'm just going to pull through a bit of a length. So I'm going to just attach my weaving wire first of all, and I'm going to use the very first little hole that I have available on the gallery wire. So just put the wire through, and you can leave whatever length tail that you want to. I prefer leaving a bit of a length just so I have something to work with, because you can always cut off any excess. So attaching it, I like to just on that very first hole basically go through that twice. So I'm just grabbing the end and going through the same little hole just to secure it more in place. And then pull that nice and tight. So we now have our weaving wire attached to our gallery wire. You can just kind of put this little tail out of the way. So now we need to bring in the stone, because we have to basically capture this stone in place from the back while the stone is in there. Obviously if you let go it's going to fall out on the front, but just hold on to it the best that you can and basically have it in the shape nice and tight around the stone like this, and hold on to it like I said just the best you can, and you can just take your time doing this. Now of course the two ends of the gallery wire are gonna more or less meet there at the top, and then the aim is to basically do a technique that's called Peruvian threading, and we're just using the wire instead, and it's going to cross from the place where we are across to another place further away, and then go back and forth while moving along the wire there, and also create a beautiful design on the back. So you can really customize this to look how you want as well, because there is no set way that you have to do that. You can start further towards the side you're already on. So for instance, the next place I would go through would be down here. That gives more of an open design on the back, or you could cross over to the other side. It will give more of a closed design on the back. So that's completely up to you. It's just the basic principle of design that I'm going to show you, and then you can just make it look however you want. So I think what I'm going to do is stay on this side here just to get a little bit more of an open design so the wires aren't covering too much of this beautiful stone. But like I said, you can do whatever you prefer. So I'm just going to find one of the gaps or holes in the gallery wire towards that flat side and come through and just gently pull the wire through so we don't damage or strip it in any way. So something a bit like that, and we can just smooth it out as we go. Make sure we don't have any unwanted kinks or bends in it here on the back. And like I said, remember to keep your stone in there as much as possible, so that when I now want to go on to the next point, I can kind of pull this tight, making sure that my stone and the wire is in the correct position, because you don't want to pull this weaving wire tight in one place, for instance, if you don't have the stone in there and it turns out it doesn't quite fit and you maybe can't get the stone back in, or the shape is just wrong for it. So you constantly want to make sure that you're referring back to the stone and that everything is still fitting together, so we don't over tighten anything or make anything too loose. So I'm gonna bend my weaving wire up there. I know that's a nice place and it's going to still fit nicely, and then from here we are gonna go back up to basically where we started, but I'm gonna move to the next hole in the wire. So instead of going through the first one, I'm gonna go through the very next open one that we haven't used yet, and I'm just coming through them all from the inside out. Again, it's just to keep a consistent look. You can do it differently. I prefer to just at least stay consistent, and then pull that through nice and gently. And of course, as we go, this length is going to get shorter and shorter to work with, and therefore easier as well, because every time we go across the back and move to the next hole in the gallery wire, we use up a decent length of the wire. And now of course, because we're moving the wire around, it can get out of shape, so always just make sure to smooth it out and put the stone back in before I pull this tight and into place basically. So hold on to it the best you can, and then pull the weaving wire nice and tight, and then just bring the weaving wire up and basically put a bit of a bend into it, and it should stay at that point. And I know it's going to fit nicely still. You can let go and get to the very end of your weaving wire, and then we're going to go through the next hole in the gallery wire, and I'm constantly moving in the same direction. So up here at the beginning, I moved down one space, so on the bottom here I'm going to move down one space as well. So basically this sectioning is going to keep moving around the wire like this, which is how we get that beautiful design. So find that next hole in the gallery wire, pull the weaving wire through nice and gently, smooth it out if you need to, place your stone back in before we pull the weaving wire tight. And you can now already start to kind of feel more resistance there, because you're not going to be able to push this just straight out the back. So you can push the stone towards that weaving wire as well now, because it's already crossing a couple of times. But pull the weaving wire tight there. Now don't pull it too tight, because you might manipulate the shape a little bit, but just a nice and taut tension. So obviously we straighten out this wire, but also help make it secure. And once you're happy with that, you just kind of bend your wire back up, get to the end again, and then I'm going back towards the top, which is obviously just the top for now. It's going to move downwards as we keep going. I'm going to find the next hole, go through again. I'm going from the inside. So again, before I pull it tight here, I'm just going to place the stone back in and put the gallery wire tight around it. And then we can start to pull the weaving wire more taut here. Make sure everything is still how we want it to look. And then basically you just want to keep going like this. So like I said, you're moving around the frame here, and you just want to keep doing that until you end up on the other end there at the top of the gallery wire. So just to show you as I'm getting further along, I've gotten to the place where I'm moving further up this side, but I've run into where I already have wire through the next little hole down here on the bottom, but that doesn't matter. Just go through it in the same way. So now we're just going to have two lengths through there, but otherwise it's exactly the same. So just follow that same pattern, and you can really start to see the effect we'll get here on the back. Try and avoid any kinks and bends, and if you get any, undo them while you're there rather than wait till later. So just fix that up and then pull it nice and tight, bring it up and come through the next one up on the other side here. And like I said, just keep going until you reach the top. So this is then what it looks like now that I've reached all the way on the top on the other side there. And we get this really cool effect, as you can see. And also, like I mentioned, this still has a bit of an open part on the back because of where it started the wire to go through when we started going back and forth there. And like I said, you can also make it cover more of the back. It's completely up to you. But now the back is pretty nicely secured. It's also much easier to be working with it as we get further over on that side there, because the back is actually fully secured now, but the front is not. So of course it can fall out on the front, which is what I'm going to deal with next. So all we're going to do is basically use those little balls right at the top to push them in over the cabochon, and that's what's going to capture it. So of course this design will look different on different gallery wires, so it could be a different kind of design, but the basic principle is to have a little part of the gallery wire towards the edge there come in over the edge of the cabochon. That's just going to capture it enough in place to be secure. So you can use your hands and fingers, like your nails, for that. You can use a specific tool, you can use pliers. I personally would prefer to not use the front part of pliers because you can obviously risk scratching the stone but also the wire. So you could use something like the back of your pliers to start pushing them in over. So really whatever you have handy. You could also use a prong pusher, a specific tool for that. Now if you can't find any tools that are kind of on the softer side and you can't use your nails and fingers, then you can use pliers like this. I would just recommend you do it quite carefully, of course, like I said, to not scratch on anything. So I kind of like to close the pliers first and then put them on top of the part that I want to push over the stone, and then just basically gently push it in, because obviously this is the strongest part of your pliers, so depending on the gallery wire as well, it could be quite a hard wire, so hard to push in over and shape. So if you do need to use pliers, of course you can do that, just be gentle about it. As you can see, something a bit like this. You just have the little balls there just catching over the edge of the cabochon, which is then why as well you need to make sure the cabochon for at least this specific wire wasn't too thick, because if it's too thick these won't be able to reach in over the edge of the stone. So that is something to consider, like I said. So just keep doing this all the way around until you feel like it's in there nice and securely, and you can flip it upside down and it's not falling out, or even shake it about a bit. So the stone is now secured all the way around here on the front as well, and you can test it, move it around, shake it up a bit, and it's not coming out. So I'm pretty pleased with that. It also looks very beautiful. This stone and this wire together is absolutely stunning, I think. Now of course we've captured the stone, which is great, but that's not enough because we have no way of hanging this yet. But that is where the bail comes in, which is then needing to be attached here at the top. So that is the next and honestly final thing to do. So we've already made the bail. So what we're going to do is use our weaving wires. Of course we have ends left here because of the gallery wire and the cabochon being attached on the back. We also have some weaving wires left on the actual bail itself, so it's up to you what you want to use. You can use all of them. You could also cut some of them off and use some of them. But the principle is that you want to choose what's the front and the back of your bail, and then the front, of course, we want facing the front of the stone as well. And we want to attach it sitting right at the top here in the middle, and these little loops are going to sit basically just catching the end of the gallery wire, and then we're going to use some weaving wires to weave through those loops on the bail and also through some of the gaps or the holes in the gallery wire there, and basically attach it securely. So that is what we need to do, whichever wires you choose to use. So I'm just going to grab the first one I can see here, and this is coming out on this side, so I'm just going to put it straight down through the loop that it's next to. Pull it through and get it in position first. And there's no right or wrong way to do this really, just do it until you feel it's secure and also obviously looks as nice as possible. So I want the bail to sit like this, and of course if you need to you can also adjust these loops here, so flatten them out more if that fits the cabochon better, or make a bit more of an angle between them like this. But have a look where I can then feed this wire through the gallery wire. So I think actually that will fit nicely with that very first gap there, where we actually already have wire coming through because of capturing on the back there. Just bring that through just to get it started for now. Kind of hold it in position and then judge where the next place is. Actually I think we can then come up back through the loop on the bail there, but we've captured then around and including the gallery wire. Make sure we don't get any kinks. Hold the bail in position while we're pulling the wire tight. So that is attached nicely now on that side there, kind of in that corner. We can do the same with maybe the other side, because the sooner we get it kind of more securely attached, the easier it will be to work with as well. So I'm literally just going to go through that back loop on the other side and pretty much repeat the same thing, and then come down through the gap in the gallery wire like that. Pull it through gently, and of course make sure to not get kinks and bends in the wire. And the bail is sitting in the position we want it to. Come back up through if that fits best. Like I said, there is no right and wrong, but it's already more secure now. Of course this isn't enough yet, but it's a good start. But that is literally the basic principle. On the front here there's some gaps as well to go through for this specific gallery wire, and you can kind of wrap around it as well if you need to. So that is the aim, to basically use your weaving wires to secure the bail to the gallery wire and have it be as secure as possible. So of course it's not going to be moving around like this. So just keep doing that until you are happy with the result. So now I've finished attaching it here and I'm happy with how secure it is. So just obviously make sure to double check that. Then to finish off the ends of the wire, just make sure that somewhere you've wrapped around the wire a couple of times before you then go in and cut off the excess, and just leaving a tiny little tail there. So we can go in and push that down and just blend it in between the other wires there, and not going to catch or scratch on anything. Make sure you feel it with your finger so you can't feel it. And then you've finished capturing your stone using this beautiful gallery wire. And in this case we have a really cool design on the back as well, with this wire going back and forth in the Peruvian style. Now just a little note, you could also use the base wires from the bail here to add more decoration around. For instance, the upper part here, add some more loops and have the wire coming down and around. So that's completely up to you. That is an option you could do, but for this I just wanted to keep it simple and kind of have the main focus be the gallery wire itself that fits beautifully with the stone as well. And otherwise, of course, the only thing that's left to do is get your chain or whatever you're using, put it through the bail, add your clasp, and then your necklace is ready to wear. So that is just 2 ways you can use gallery wire to capture a cabochon. And the basic principles are pretty simple, but you can end up with absolutely beautiful results just because of that gallery wire. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Now if you want to see more from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I have loads of tutorials within many different mediums. And of course, always feel free to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss any future ones. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.